Hello, good evening and welcome. Hello.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Choo choo.
So what are we doing, Kev?
What are we doing? We're doing choo choo. The Australian. We're doing the Australian David Bowie. Hello, Spice Boy. Choo choo. And we're doing station to station. We're starting with station to station. Station to station. So, David Bowie, he's cool. And so, in a way, I've said, cool is a bad thing, and yet, David Bowie is cool. But that's the word I would use. But it's a different kind of cool.
Yeah.
It is a different kind of, it's kind of, there's something art house about it. But also, that makes it kind of a bit lower sixth, a bit sixth formery. And yet, he kind of makes that cool as well.
Yeah, I think it's his sort of indifference to sort of other people's take on things.
So yes, this is Station to Station from '76. We should rewind a bit and talk about, obviously he did his glam period. He got bored of glam, because glam is glam. He sort of, from there, went, well, where does that come from? And he went back to American soul, and what he called plastic soul. And he got very good at it, I think. I think Young Americans, which is the album before, is excellent. And he kind of got bored with that very quickly and entered a real period of druggy craziness. Taking a lot of drugs, taking an enormous amount of drugs, and getting paranoid and all this stuff. His meal times were, like, I think it was 4 a.m. and 5 p.m, where he would drink milk and red peppers and green peppers. And in fact, he took to storing his urine in the fridge because he thought another wizard was going to steal his urine. And genuinely, he thought Jimmy Page was the Antichrist and was coming to get him. Which is quite funny. Because Jimmy Page was into that stuff as well.
Yeah.
Less publicly. And he was into the Vril. You know the Vril? It's the Nazi stuff. It's the stuff about the underground superhumans. And an amalgamation of all occulty stuff, which he now admits was nonsense. But it is in the midst of this madness. He made The Man Who Fell to Earth. And then he made this album.
The Thin White Duke.
The Thin White Duke, who is basically a racist. So his last character was a racist. Yes, a Nazi Aryan.
I think
kind of.
Yeah, I think that's probably a little bit simplistic.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah,
he's a genuinely interesting character. To be honest with you, I don't know very much about David Bowie. He's a bit of a strange figure to me because sort of my first take on him was obviously in Labyrinth.
Right. Yeah. So. This man from the 80s was making stuff in the 70s.
He was making stuff in the 70s. And I actually found it quite interesting to look at his sort of the way he works and stuff like that. I probably don't invest as much into it as a lot of his fans are. He's very, in the early stages of his career, he was very Marmite-y. You either loved him or you loathed him. But this seems a little bit more grown up to me.
Yeah.
And there's sort of definitely fueled by the cocaine, that sort of personality that was creating is sort of feeding into this persona.
Yeah.
He's created the Thin White Duke.
It's not clear how much is him and how much of it
Yeah.
is. But I mean, that's true of the whole of this period of Ziggy and everything. All the stories about that period. Some of it is definitely made up.
It's more than just. It's a bit like Michael Jackson when we said he transcends sort of like the music. David Bowie transcends me in an entirely different way.
Yeah.
But the music feeds into the whole oeuvre of what he's trying to create. So you have to sort of look at it at how it feeds into that.
Absence and lack of emotion and alienation, like Pink Floyd.
One of the things that they say about it is he keeps reinventing himself. So you got Ziggy Stardust, Spiders from Mars, Aladdin Sane, the Thin White Duke, and the various things. But a lot of his music does seem to come back to that sort of idea of being on the outside, sort of looking in, which is peculiar because David Bowie probably is as establishment as you can get. There is very little controversy these days.
I think that's his problem now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that he's too establishment.
Yeah.
That was the 80s. That's what happened in the 80s, and he did escape it briefly, but it was only for a brief time.
It's interesting you mentioned sort of Pink Floyd. Because you listen to you watch early interviews of David Bowie, and he's very sort of, he gave a lot of respect to the interviewer,
Yeah.
He almost sort of deferential. He was quite deferential
and respectful.
Or respectful.
Yeah.
That kind of changed in this period. But
yeah.
I think it was almost a punk type attitude.
Yeah. Yeah.
To his interviews.
Well, there's the famous interview with Russell Harty, which I think is from '76, might be '77.
It's just the satellite link.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Russell Harty is so offensive.
He's obnoxious.
Yeah. So I think his responses were perfectly reasonable.
There's an interview from 1974 with Dick Cavett, an American interview, which is much better, and David Bowie's in a very similar sort of state of mind, and Dick Cavett handles it a lot better. A lot better than Russell Harty.
Yeah.
But yeah, it surprised me how anti-establishment the message is from people that sound very, very middle class. Pink Floyd and David Bowie sound very, very middle class. Yeah, their message is fundamentally anti-establishment. Yet they gain widespread acceptance, whereas punk very anti-establishment.
I mean that's middle class as well,
yeah.
but it kind of pretends not to be. So it's a kind of different thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
But they're both trying to escape. Well, Roger Waters and David Bowie anyway are trying. At the time they weren't happy. So the first song is the most important song, I think. Station to Station. This is the biggie, Return of the Thin White Duke.
Station to Station, very long intro, which is basically a sound effect.
Of a train.
A train. I didn't realise this.
Which makes it exactly 10 minutes. Oh no, it doesn't. It makes it over 10 minutes. Yeah. So yeah.
It's sort of, I didn't realise this till I listened to it about the third time. But the train actually goes backwards. It goes from the right ear to the left ear, which is kind of
backwards train.
Yeah, which is kind of cool.
Mm.
And the very first words coming, I don't know, it's about 2.5 minutes in or something like that. Or 3 minutes in, whatever. The very first sort of words, it reminds me a little bit of Frank Zappa. Just the first phrase.
Oh yeah. There's a little bit of sort of doo-wop to it, isn't there?
Yeah, and it's the characterisation. I think this is a curtain raiser for the album and this new character. So the first thing you get is characterisation. It's the return of the thin white Duke, throwing darts in lovers' eyes, which doesn't really sum him up, but it gives you a pretty good idea that this isn't a very nice incarnation.
This isn't glam and it isn't soul.
Yeah.
This is something else. I think this is, in a way, it's the definitive Bowie song. It's his epic. It's his only epic, I think. And it's got a really good riff. The riff is something that's appeared many times in different things. I know Pink Floyd used it. Rainbow used it the year before. Bad Company used it very famously. And Judas Priest used it as well. So it's one of those riffs that keeps popping up. I don't think it's plagiarism. I think it's just a really obvious riff.
Mm. I do struggle with his voice a little bit. I find his voice quite expressive. It's not easy on the ear, put it that way.
No, it's not meant to be.
No.
But I think this is much better live. Partially, I'm not a fan of Earl Slick, who's the guitarist. I find him quite a boring blues guitarist, and he never resolves the melodies. It's always just bow, bow, bow. And I find that a bit monotonous. So live, when he got Adrian Belew and people like that playing, it was much better. But also his voice, he's much more in your face when he sings it live, and it's a lot better.
I try to imagine the song sung by someone else, and it would lose something. He does bring something to a song,
but it's good though. It is good.
It makes it interesting. It adds an extra dimension.
So yeah, Station to Station is a really good song. I think it's a really good song, and I think you should listen to it.
Yeah.
Moving on. Next song, Golden Years by David Bowie. This one's weird because I think it kind of belongs on the previous album. This is more the normal soul-y Bowie. It's funny though, now all these songs sound like David Bowie songs because over the years it just gets amalgamated into his sound, but this album was very different at the time. It's a good song though, it's very famous now.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I can't really place it on this album, whereas the previous track obviously feeds into this thing he's trying to create.
Yeah.
I can't see what Golden Years really adds to that.
No, and it's got a cool funky riff, so it's very much American soul-y pop stuff.
Word on a wing.
This is a tricky one to review, I think, because it's not. I'm not sure whether he's being serious or not.
During his time filming The Man Who Fell to Earth, that was the closest he came to sort of surrendering to this sort of religious idea, and it's a sort of it feels like he's toying with the idea of sort of believing in that, or sort of appealing to the notion of a god, but he wants to do it on his terms. So there's a few throwaway lines in there which are obviously quite sarcastic.
Yeah.
About religion.
It's deliberately over the top, isn't it?
I think he's kind of sort of exercising that thing he's trying to deal with in his life, that paranoia and that sort of temptation to sort of throw it all in and just say, there is an answer in religion. It might not be fully satisfactory if you just turn your brain off.
Is it self-parody? There's an element of self-parody to it, I think. I mean, it's not like Yes, where it was about ascension, and when they actually got to the point of mentioning God and things, it became very jarring. It's more a spiritual search for something. But here he's saying he's trying to start again. He's saying he said those things, but maybe not. Maybe that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And he's starting again now.
Yeah, it sounds like he's on actually, it sets up a journey quite nicely. Whereas the Dim White Duke is obviously pretty soulless, not narcissistic, because I don't think he really loves anything, but he's
Nazi-cistic.
A Nazi-cistic created. This is sort of acknowledging that there is a hole somewhere, and he's looking for something to fill that hole.
Yeah, but
kind of
strange song though, one I can't get to grips with.
Yeah,
completely.
I tell you what, I did notice his songs are. I don't know if it's just this album or in general, but his songs are really wordy.
Yeah,
they're very
wordy. You can tell he spends a lot of time writing lyrics.
Yeah,
making sure they're what he wants to say and whatever.
But he doesn't really condense it down at all.
No.
There doesn't seem to be any distillation going on.
Yeah. Well, a lot of it is about keeping it open to interpretation and that kind of thing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like Roger Waters where he's concise. And
I didn't know if that was sort of feeding in against this sort of Dim White Duke character, because if you don't really feel anything, how can you condense an emotion down to its... because you don't really understand it, if you know what I mean. It's basically borderline a psychopath now.
Yeah, but we don't know. That's the important thing. You don't really know any of it.
Well, he doesn't know because apparently he doesn't even remember recording the album.
No, he doesn't. But basically, this is stuff that came out of drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next song,
TVC 15.
I think this is the weakest song on the album. I think it's completely throwaway. It's kind of boring. He liked the end bit that my TVC 15, my TVC 15. He just liked the rhythm of that. So they had to get a song that got there, and yet he's played it live probably more than any other song on the album.
There's a bit of a story behind it that Iggy Pop was taking acid with his wife. He hallucinated the TV set eating his wife.
But the next song, funky song, weird Bowie vocals. I think this is great. There's nothing sophisticated about it. It's just a great song. He's kind of bringing what he'd done with the soul stuff over the Atlantic a bit, but keeping it funky. And I think it's great. For me, it's one of the best on the album.
And this one again, I think it does sort of feed into that sort of character.
Yeah, there's a real paranoia to the vocals actually.
Yeah, it's a sort of bit of a lament again. It's sort of, I think he's trying to explain why he does the coke. It's his way of interacting with people, because obviously he's in America and I think he's just partying just to have people around sort of thing. And
so he wants people around but hates having people around. Again, it's very dependent on the guitar, and I'm not a fan of the guitar player. So again, with Azure Blue, way better. Definitely, without question. Yeah, okay, so the final song,
Wild is the Wind.
Wild is the Wind. It's a cover. At this point, he liked to have a cover version on every album. It's performed by Johnny Mathis for the film Wild is the Wind from 1950 something. Made famous by Nina Simone. There's a Nina Simone version which is quite good. I think this is a fantastic version and very, very true to the original. If you want to hear why his voice is good, and a great example of that, this song. It's a fantastic vocal performance. His voice is so rich on this, and I was saying Bowie's cool and Art House and stuff. It's like the credits to some really cool film noir or something, isn't it? It's like that. And great ending to an album. But it does feel you've had Station to Station, and then Wild is the Wind, and there wasn't much in between. Almost, it's like the album's finished, and you're like, well, I wanted something else.
Yeah,
it was a strange feeling of lack of fulfilment.
If it was the same tracks written by someone else, performed by someone else, or didn't come out under the David Bowie banner, I think it would be perceived in quite a different light. I think the fact that it's David Bowie changes the perceptions of it quite a lot and adds something to it, some kind of coolness.
Yes. And where it is in the sequence of albums.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, more Bowie to come. We'll be back. We'll be off to Berlin with Low.
Looking forward to it.
See you next time.
Bye bye.